Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Buffalo Wings. We are at the start of the 2027 to 2028 offseason. We are right at the start of the arbitration period. You can see there's only a handful of players Brandon Williamson, Javier Atencio, Jordan Westberg, and Kevin Made that we're definitely going to be making offers to. As you can see, we've got a fair amount of relievers whose arbitration numbers are starting to get relatively high. So we are going to be shopping players heavily over the next few weeks till we get to the salary arbitration hearings on the 25th. So we got 3 weeks from today to try to get the players we want signed, likely sign a couple other players that we haven't made offers to, and then hopefully package the rest of them to get something in return. At the very least, a prospect for some of these players would be useful. And if we can put an interesting package together to fill some of the potential holes on our team, whether it's a left-handed reliever, whether it's a middle infielder, whether it's a big bat, maybe even whether it's another starting pitcher, we're going to try to get as creative as possible without hopefully fracturing our farm system over the next couple weeks as we try to add a little bit of talent to help us get to 500 next season at the major league level. And we've heard back on one potential deal, and given the trade difficulty that we're on, I don't think some of you are going to like this one. But I'm going to do it primarily for financial reasons. We can get the 29-year-old left-handed pitcher, Kyle Backus. As I talked about, we need more left-handed arms in the pen, and he looks like a potentially competent major league pitcher. He's only spent 3 days in the major league very recently, pitched 2/3 of an inning, walked a batter. Doesn't throw that hard, extreme ground ball tendencies, but he does look like he could be pretty effective against left-handed pitchers. And he's got 2 more option years ahead of him, and he's making the major league minimum. To pick him up, we have to give Max Meyer, who's a guy who's set to make about $2.8 million in arbitration. He didn't make our roster this year, and he put up an ERA of close to 5 in Albany before he suffered a partially torn labrum. And we have to add in 1 more player. Now, some of these guys, there's no way that we're going to add, but one guy that they're willing to accept is Cam Wynn. This is another guy who's set to make about $1.6 million, is a right-handed reliever next year, also going to be 29, and he's another guy who didn't make our 26-man roster out of spring training because we've got so many right-handed relievers right now. Put up a 5.73 ERA and 11 innings pitched at the end of the year. On paper, I think Wynn and Meyer both look better than Backus, but it'll clear some money to allow us to hopefully be more aggressive in free agency and potentially taking on some contracts. Give us a left-handed arm, which we need for the bullpen, and it's one who we can send down to AAA for another 2 years in a row if we do end up bringing on higher quality left-handed arms through free agency or other trades. So it gives us a fair amount of optionality, gets some contracts off of our books. So we're going to add Cam Wynn into the deal, and we are going to go ahead and complete that trade. Taking a quick look at the financial situation, our money available continues to rise with those 2 guys off of our books. There's definitely some other right-handed pitchers that we're going to be looking to likely move on from. Backus tentatively goes on to the major league roster as a potential left-handed arm for us out of the bullpen next year. And we've got another trade we're going to execute on. We're going to send the left-handed reliever Ronan Kopp, a guy that we picked in the expansion draft. He is a left-hander, but he hasn't done much the last 2 seasons at Albany with ERAs in the mid to high 4s, and he's out of options. In return, we can get catcher Edward Montero, 24-year-old with 3 option years left. Best case scenario, he looks like he could be a backup catcher at the major league level. Quite honestly, he's probably a guy we'd prefer to have in AAA. And if we have some injury issues, potentially bring him up, but at least gives us a player with more options. So we're going to go ahead and complete that trade, get a little more potential salary off of our team, and also give us a little more flexibility in terms of a player who's got some options still available. And we're starting to make some progress with some of our minor league free agents, as well as some of the players that we offered arbitration contracts to, or actually contracts to avoid arbitration. Got Brandon Williamson, Jordan Westberg, Javier Atencio, and Kevin Made re-signed. And we're deep in a trade discussion with the Yankees that could fill our need for a middle infielder, but it's not going to be cheap to get it done. All right, I think we've pieced another trade together here over an extended period of negotiations with the Dodgers. I had mentioned that Mike Baumann is arbitration eligible and set to make around $6 million next year. He is a good, solid reliever who could start for us in a pinch. And he's been pretty good in his 2 years in Buffalo. But when all is said and done, I think he's still a replaceable right-handed arm, and I don't really want to be paying him $6 million. So we're able to, if we include one more throw-in guy, plus minor league pitcher Justin LeGuernick, who was a third-round pick of ours in the first draft that we ever did. He had a 6.52 ERA in A-ball last year. He's 22 years old. Best case scenario, he's a back of the rotation, back of the bullpen kind of guy, and I don't think he gets there. And then minor league second baseman Helison Mota, who was a minor league free agent signing of ours right when we started this playthrough. Another kind of generic potential backup at the major league level. And we can get Devin Williams, the closer from the Dodgers, and we can get them to retain 40% of his contract next year. So we'll actually end up paying him about $5.7 million, which is less than what we would have had to pay Baumann. And we're getting a guy who is a proven closer, coming off of a really nice season, only a one-year commitment. But his stuff is incredible. His movement also great. Ground ball tendencies. His control leaves a little bit to be desired. But I think that having a guy like Devin Williams at the back end of our bullpen would definitely help us hopefully close out more games next year. It also lets us move Atencio to be a left-handed specialist or a left-handed reliever for us who doesn't always have to close, which I think helps the bullpen also. And to be able to do it for less than what we would have had to pay Baumann in arbitration, I think it makes sense, even though we're throwing in a few other guys who really are not all that important to our future. The last we're going to throw in is Russell Wanacott, a scouting discovery from a few years ago who hit 239 in rookie ball this year. Don't see him being a big-time prospect, so happy to throw in Russell Wanacott as well. And we are going to go ahead and complete that trade. Hey, we've traded for an all-star. Not that we're playing with owner goals. Fans aren't happy that we brought on or traded away Baumann, but the fans are very excited we brought on Devin Williams. I think it makes sense to do this trade for less than we would have been paying Baumann anyways. Got a nice boost to fan interest there, and I think it makes sense. And even if it doesn't, the deal is done now, so it is what it is at this point. But we've got a closer for next year, which should be good. And we've got another deal I pieced together, and I think a lot of you are going to hate this. but I'm running the team here. We've been talking about wanting to add a quality middle infielder. And when I look at the upcoming free agents, there's just not a lot out there of a guy who's a decent hitter and also decent defensively. You know, we could pick up our old buddy Tommy Edman for about $12 million a year. Like the glove still, but not much of a bat at this point. Going to turn 33 early next year. J.P. Crawford, just not enough of a bat. Also a guy who's going to be 33 years old shortly. And a guy who's also going to cost us around $13 million. Luis Arias, just don't love the glove for a middle infielder with him, given that defense is something we want to improve. So we've been trying to tap the trade market, and we've ended up centered in on the Yankees and trying to bring Oswald Peraza on board. He's a guy who's arbitration eligible. Actually, he's not arbitration eligible anymore. He was arbitration eligible, and the Yankees have signed him to an extension. So that definitely changes the dynamics a bit, because I was okay making a $11-ish million commitment to him for 1 year. I don't know about making a 4-year, $16+ million commitment to him. That's something that's happened relatively recently. A week ago, he signed a 4-year extension for the Yankees for about $65 million a year. So that's a little bit of a change in our plans with the amount of money we have available, and with the fact that I don't really love any of the free agent options for a middle infielder. I was okay bringing him on for around $11 million in his option year next year, or not his option year, arbitration eligible year next year. I don't know that I want to take on that $65 million contract, though, particularly with how much we're going to have to give up to get him. The cornerstone of the trade was going to be Edgar Ojeda. You may remember he's a guy we picked in the 6th round a couple of years ago when we had a lot of money to spend. He's viewed as the number 89 prospect in baseball. His upside, if he fully develops, is pretty good. But he just hit 211 in his second year in rookie ball after hitting 220 the year before. So I don't know that he's ever really going to develop the way that we want him to. And then we were going to add in Khalil Watson, the utility infielder, Mike Burrows, who's a pitcher that we don't want to sign to an arbitration contract, so we were just throwing him in. And then a few other minor leaguers, our former backup catcher Israel Pineda, and Vaughn Necker, who's a guy we picked in the 2nd round in 2025. Looks like maybe he could be a useful major league player, but not a big star. But I don't know that I want to make that type of long-term commitment unless the Yankees are willing to keep a chunk of Peraza's contract at this point. So don't know if we're going to get this one done or not. And we were giving up a lot to begin with. Now, the fact if we could give up a lot, get the Yankees to keep a chunk of his contract now that he's signed the extension, if we can get him to keep a big enough chunk of it, then giving up all these assets makes me potentially feel a little better about it. I just don't know that the Yankees are really going to go for that. So we were one player away from getting this deal done, and we were willing to include the 27-year-old minor league center fielder Victor Labrada, guy we picked in the expansion draft, who has split the last couple years between high A ball, double A, and most recently triple A. Decent defensively, but just not enough bat to be a big part of our future. So I think I'm going to throw Labrada into the deal, but then also try to get the Yankees to retain a good chunk of Peraza's contract, which will probably blow up the deal. I had been rushing to try to get this deal done before the arbitration deadline, which is 10 days away at this point. But now that Peraza is no longer arbitration eligible, that does give us potentially more flexibility. If we can't get this deal done, don't feel like I have to get him on board in time to get him to agree to a contract before a potential arbitration hearing. Can kind of let free agency come and go and see who's available on the trade market. He was one of the better combinations in terms of someone with a respectable glove and a respectable bat that could hopefully help strengthen our offense a little bit and strengthen our defense a bit also, especially with the fact that our shortstop Kevin Made is now fragile. So we'll see what the Yankees say when we try to sign a guy or try to trade for a guy that a week ago they just signed to a 4-year extension, and we ask them to hang on to a good chunk of his salary. I can't imagine this is going to go well. Oh, and because the extension's been signed and it hasn't kicked in yet, we can't even get the Yankees to retain any of it. So that money, including 15 the year after next and then 19 each of the other 2 years, is not really what we were looking for. So it actually may have saved us from trading a whole bunch of assets to the Yankees. Still feel like we want to improve with a middle infielder, second baseman, or a shortstop who's good defensively and good offensively. Peraza, once we get past arbitration and into free agency, when we could potentially have the Yankees keep a chunk of that contract, may still be in the mix. But right now, not going to happen. So I think we're just going to turn our attention to seeing what we can get for the likes of Mike Burrows, if there's anything that we can get out there for him before we just decide to not give him an arbitration offer and move on our separate ways. Well, when one door closes, another door opens, and we may have an opportunity to bring on our middle infielder. We started shopping Tyler McGill. You may remember he's very angry, requested a trade at the end of the season, and he's also kind of sucked for us for the last 2 years. 5.21 ERA as a starter last year. He lost his starting gig 6 games into this year and still put up an 8.50 ERA over the course of the season. So he's signed to a pretty reasonable contract for this coming season, $1.7 million, and then a team option at $2 million. So if he gets himself straightened out, he has some value. If we include him, Khalil Watson, the utility infielder, who is a good glove but not a good enough bat and is fragile physically, we can get Bo Bichette from the Pirates. He is also fragile. He is not as good defensively as Watson, but he's got still a productive bat when he's healthy. Last year in 44 games, put up a OPS plus and a WRC plus over 130. He's making $16 million next year, but we're able to get the Pirates to keep 60% of that contract. So as a 1-year kind of gap player to give us a little bit of insurance in case Made gets hurt, I think it makes sense. We don't have to add in a big-time player at this point to get the deal done, and it'll probably keep us from doing something desperate to get somebody like Oswald Peraza on board. So I think I am leaning towards doing this deal. To get it done, minor league catcher Adam Kerner, who's been in our system a couple years now, actually several years. We signed him as a minor league free agent right when we started the playthrough, and he's been through our minor league organization. Like his glove, just doesn't have a major league bat, 29 years old. happy to throw him in. So we're going to put Kerner into the deal. And we'll see if putting Kerner in, we'll come back and see if we can get them to keep another 10% of his contract. Want to save every penny possible. I don't know what their reaction is going to be. Yeah, they're looking for a pretty good player or prospect to be able to get that done. So we'll go back here. We'll put Kerner in, and we'll just complete the trade. So that gives us the middle infielder, at least for next year, that we need, not making a long-term commitment. It was addition by subtraction, getting the crappy attitude of Tyler McGill off of our team, and potentially when Made and Bichette are healthy, that lets us potentially get Seifu some playing time at third base, and hopefully just tightens up the overall defense of our team a bit, and also gives us another proven major league bat. Not expecting a huge year from Bichette at this point, and obviously there's risk of an injury with the fact that he's fragile, but I think that bat could definitely help us, and we've still got money to play with for free agency if someone somewhat surprisingly and unexpectedly ends up on the market. If there's a international free agent that we want to make a play for, or if we just want to try to get more trades done. Don't feel like we gave up anyone who was really in our long-term plans to get Bichette on board. And also not a huge salary commitment for next year, with the Pirates keeping the majority of his contract for us. And we are through award season. No awards at all for our 72 and 90 Buffalo Wings. NL MVP, Elly De La Cruz of the Reds, 275, 41 homers, 114 ribbies. Adley Rutschman of the World Series champion Baltimore Orioles, the American League MVP, 299 average, 30 homers, and 99 runs driven in for the excellent defensive catcher. Spencer Strider, the National League Cy Young Award winner. Our ERA leader, Shane Bieber, did get a few votes, but Strider, 15 and 9 with a 2.89 ERA and 243 strikeouts. Unanimous winner for a second consecutive year. He won the pitching Triple Crown last year. Over in the American League, Carlos Rodon, a unanimous Cy Young Award winner for a second year in a row in the American League. So Rodon didn't lead the league in strikeouts this year, so he's had 2/3 of a pitching Triple Crown each of the last 2 years for the Yankees. Thought we might have a chance at the NL Rookie of the Year. Deshaun Seifu, who was only up for 88 games, finished third in the voting. Walker Jenkins of the Rockies was a unanimous winner. Hit 356, 43 doubles, 19 home runs. So clearly a well-deserving Rookie of the Year for the former third-round draft pick. I will say, though, Deshaun Seifu with a league best 15 triples and 59 stolen bases in just 88 games, with his 302 batting average and his 61 runs scored. If he had the opportunity to have played in another 70 or so games, he could have put up some pretty wacky statistics and maybe competed more competitively with Walker Jenkins for that National League Rookie of the Year award. And Miguel Blaise, our Rule 5 acquisition, also got support as well following his 26 homer and 21 steal season as our starting center fielder. And we ended up having two players that when we went to arbitration with, they're pretty frustrated with the team's performance on the field last year, so they wouldn't negotiate with us. The potential backup outfielder, Johnny DeLuca, got $3.2 million, which is what we had offered. And Nolan Jones, the backup infielder, got $1.4 million, which was also what we offered. So we won both of those cases, and we will have Jones and DeLuca back with us next year. So we are a day away from free agent filings and seeing who's actually going to be on the market. And it looks like we will potentially have a decent amount of money to spend. And given that through this pre-free agency period of the offseason, we've added in a closer with Williams. We've added in a potential starting infielder with Bichette. Feel that it's been somewhat productive because we brought back the players we wanted to bring back as well. So don't think we're quite the 500 team that we want to be next year yet, but we've still got free agency and a huge chunk of the offseason to hopefully change that dynamic a bit and get this team into contention. And before we finish off the episode, we'll take a look at the international free agents as well as the actual free agents. Would be great if there was some help among the international free agents. Ji-Hoo Kim looks like a solid fourth or fifth starter. We only have average scouting accuracy on him. We'll request a scouting report on him. And not going to offer him a contract quite yet. Was hoping maybe we could offer him a minor league deal. First baseman Takao Ota, 25-year-old. We kind of got burned by our foray into Japanese prospects last year, but Oda certainly looks like he's got better contact than Nakajima with potential for pretty good home run power. Not as good an eye as Nakajima had, but also looking for a lot less money. So we'll request a scouting report on him as well. He's young enough that he could be someone interesting. Second baseman Masahiro Murata. Really like the glove. Really like the durability. The bat doesn't look like it's quite major league quality, and it looks like he's already signed a minor league contract with the Mariners, so nothing to see there. And Lang Choi, 21-year-old out of Taiwan. Looks like a decent prospect. We'll definitely request a scouting report and certainly offer him a minor league contract. I don't know whether that'll go anywhere with him, but wouldn't be the worst guy to add to our farm system. Now turning to the major league free agents. Rowdy Tellez, 32-year-old first baseman. Could use the captain personality, just don't know that there's enough of a bat there. If we could guarantee he was going to hit 269 with 42 homers again, would certainly be all over it. But that batting average is one of the best that he's ever had in the major leagues, 238 career hitter, so hit 30 points above his career mark last year as a 32-year-old, going to be 33 before the season starts. Probably not the way to go. Clark Schmidt, the starting pitcher, could he be a decent fourth or fifth starter for us? Sure. Do we want to spend $12 million for that? Probably not. Dylan Carlson would definitely help us in center field. We were just talking about the fact that Blaze did receive Rookie of the Year votes, but certainly the opportunity to bring on a bat like Dylan Carlson for our lineup would certainly help our offense. Don't know that we want to be paying him $27 million, though. Ronald Acuna Jr. doesn't look like his bat has developed quite the way Atlanta probably would hope that it would, but still led the league in runs each of the last 2 years for a really good Atlanta team, stealing tons of bases. Again, guy looking for $28 million, though, probably not our answer. Jeffrey Spings, starting pitcher, coming off of a ruptured tendon in his finger, looking for almost $18 million. 35 years old, probably not the right way to go. Luis Urias, don't really need a third baseman and don't know that the bat is special enough. Ty France, first baseman, no thank you at $17 million. Alex Verdugo, don't love the personality, but a decent defensive outfielder, got a cannon for an arm. Led the league in doubles last year, but don't know that I want to be spending $13 a year on him. J.P. Crawford, we already talked about, probably not the right fit. And David Peterson, starting pitcher. Again, a guy who would be a more than competent fourth or fifth starter for us. Just don't know that I want to be spending $18 million a year on him. So the free agent market doesn't look incredible to us. But we do have a lot of money to potentially spend here now with the fact that we've gotten through arbitration, let some players go, and it's going to be an interesting offseason. We definitely need to add some talent to the team. When I think about our farm system, we've slipped to 18th overall with some of our big players, notably Honeycutt and Seifu, no longer being viewed as prospects. So we don't have any real imminent prospects except Samuel Basallo, who's definitely going to be in the mix to be our backup catcher or a potential backup infielder next year. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to see what that bat could do at the major league level after he had 34 homers and 91 ribbies across AA and AAA this past year. So Basallo is really the only prospect we have who's anywhere close, ready to contributing at the major league level. But if we need to use some of these guys to bring on some talent to hopefully get our team closer to 500, we'll certainly think about it. I don't think we've got a Ohtani type move ahead of us. Just obviously we looked at the top prospects or the top free agents. Takao Oda, certainly if he really ends up being someone who has 4.5-star potential for less than $2 million a year, could be an interesting player for us to think about. 6'2", so he can definitely play first. He's a first baseman / DH, but we could use some offensive help, and he looks like someone who might be able to help a little bit. Other than that, though, don't know that there's anyone obvious that we really want to make a big run at as far as the batters. Turning to the pitchers, guess we could go for a big-time closer in Edwin Diaz, Sam Hentges, left-handed arm if we want to try to add another lefty, but probably would make more sense to go a little more economical with someone like Adrian Morjan. He could be a pretty interesting lefty for us. We definitely need a lefty. He is out of option years. But I think we may make him an offer. He's been a bit above average in terms of his ERA plus, well above average in terms of his FIP minus over the course of his career with a 274 Sierra. Definitely even tougher on lefties than he is on righties with that excellent stuff. Not looking for a ton of money. Yeah, among the top lefties, I guess Jalen Beeks isn't looking for a lot of money either, but he's fragile, a little bit older. Actually, somehow better against righties, even though he's a left-handed thrower. So I think in Morjon at 28 years old, I think we'll put an offer out to him right now. Looking for a 1-year deal, 1.6 million. We're certainly going to try to give ourselves some options to maybe keep him around longer than that. So he's looking for 1 year, 1.6 million. We'll offer him 3 years at an average of 1.5 million with team options for the second and third seasons to protect ourselves. Says he's willing to think about it, so that could definitely help us in terms of bringing another left-handed arm into the bullpen. So we've got a lot to think about this offseason. I don't think we're going to be huge players in free agency just because I don't know that there's anyone we really want to throw a ton of money at, with the amount we have available. Could we go after a Dylan Carlson or a Ronald Acuna Jr.? We could. We certainly could use another professional bat, and Carlson gives us that, even if he's not an ideal defensive center fielder. Acuna Jr., more of a corner outfielder, obviously a lot of speed. Over the course of his career, still has a 125 OPS plus and 125 WRC plus, but you can see 2 of the last 3 years he's barely been above average in terms of those numbers, but coming off of a nice season last year. But has hit 235, 240, and 236 in 3 of the last 5 years, while leading the league in strikeouts twice. So clearly hasn't developed perfectly, but still draws a lot of walks. Carlson, looking at his batting, just a little bit above average over the course of his career, but he's coming off 2 of the best seasons in his career in terms of his OPS plus and his WRC plus. Switch hitter, a little better defensively than Acuna. It's unfortunate that he doesn't really have optimal speed to take care of that great gap power, or to take advantage, more accurately, of that great gap power. But a guy who can walk a decent amount, make decent contact potentially. Either of those guys could certainly help our offense. The question is just, do we really want to be tying up 25, 26, 27, 28 million dollars in one of those guys for several seasons? Acuna Jr., looking for 9 years at close to 28 million a year. Carlson, looking for 7 years at about 27.5. I think we could definitely regret either of those contracts very easily. So if you've got thoughts on whether we should spend the money that we've got, we've got 48 million. Do we spend a big chunk of it on one of those guys, or do we save our money for a rainy day and perhaps try to use the trade market to bring on some talent to make this team more competitive next year? Going to be an interesting offseason, and looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds and what we can do to make this team better. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.